So like I said, let's talk Seahawks football. I ran a poll Sunday evening that went into Monday evening after people had some time to digest what had happened when the Seattle Seahawks lost 33-27 to the Tennessee Titans, a game that, Okay, I'm going to stop for a second. I had mentioned that this was like a random and rare matchup, and you kind of giggled at it. I think the last time, like mid-2000s was the last time the Seahawks had been in Tennessee.
So, to been to Tennessee or just played Tennessee?
Just played, I think at least been to Tennessee.
8 years ago.
Yeah.
So I was right. It was random and rare.
Been to Tennessee. They played Tennessee, though, I believe, Russell Wilson's rookie year.
That's still, was that 5 years ago still?
League? Yeah. 6.
So
Five, 6.
it happens every so often, so people didn't really know what to expect out of this matchup.
Yeah.
And anyway, running this poll had, a couple different options, offensive struggles, defensive struggles, discipline issues, or other. Other got a lot of votes, as well as discipline issues.
Did you ever get any responses to what that other could have been?
A couple different things. People were not pleased that the defense had to be on the field so often, so that is ultimately a result of, they were tired. The Seahawks gave up 21 points in the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think there's merit to that, but that would fall under offensive struggles for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there was there's quite a few options, quite a few angles you can take. So I get us started, guys. Where are you going with this?
I like the discipline take that you mentioned, Christian. I didn't see all the game. I saw a good portion of it, though, and a couple plays that really stood out to me was in the first quarter, Sherman made a pass interference play on Cam Chancellor's interception to take that away. Then he held a guy on the return, and then he got a personal foul after the play was over. 3 penalties, 1 play.
That's a lot of problems.
There was another play, same quarter. The O-line made 3 penalties, 1 play.
More problems, more disciplinary problems.
Altogether, they gave up 6 first downs to the Titans on penalties, including one with about 15 seconds left in the game. Tennessee was about to punt. We went off sides, gave them a first down so they could kneel it for the win. You can't make that up.
Yeah, that's giving a game away, for sure. Discipline issues abound. DJ, what do you got for us?
So, I'm going to attribute this loss to defensive struggles. Week after week, we have said the offense is not producing, And what I said last week is we kind of, even though they were struggling, we have to hold our judgment because the Hawks have always been late bloomers on the offensive side. The Hawks outgained the Titans 433 to 420 total yards. We put up 27 points, and usually that is enough. But the defense, the conditions wore on the defense, and Tennessee was a very physical team. That offensive line, I give them props because they took it to the front 7 of the Hawks play after play. And as far as, the discipline issues, I'm going to have to disagree with Seth here. Back in 2014 when we won our Super Bowl, we had Michael Bennett who was offsides after offsides after offsides. And Sherman, I would even argue, talked more back then than he does now. Football is it's a very emotional sport, and I would argue it's the most emotional sport out there. The guys are, if you do anything that you do on the football field in general public, you're gonna be put in jail for it. And there is so much raw emotion in football. The physicalness is just out of this world, and I completely understand where Sherman's coming from. He's always been I don't want to say a hothead, but he's always played with a lot of passion. He's gotten personal fouls before. I do think he could have been thrown out of the game, but props to the ref for letting him do his thing. But I don't think it falls to discipline. Pete Carroll has always been one of those coaches a player's coach that kind of just lets his players play. And the Hawks have, year in and year out, that defense has played with an attitude, and they've played with effort. And I think that's what makes the Seahawks defense what they are today.
Call us and tell us what you think. 253-535-7332. We want to know what you think went wrong for the Seattle Seahawks in their loss against the Tennessee Titans last Sunday. Again, the number is 253-535-7332. DJ, you mentioned that Pete Carroll's a player's coach.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about discipline issues. I mean, it's kind of the environment that Pete Carroll has fostered in his time, not only with Seattle, but in his USC days. I mean, people have gotten in trouble under Pete Carroll in college. Then he moved on to the NFL when the ship was sinking at USC. Now, we've had Seattle Seahawks. You mentioned Richard Sherman. Very much a hothead, kind of does whatever he wants verbally with the media. Michael Bennett.
Doug Baldwin even.
Doug Baldwin can kind of get off on a little bit of his own tangent. To their benefit or to their doubt. I mean, when it works well for them, it really does work. But at the same time, when you give up 6 first downs because penalties,
yeah,
I mean that's an instance to me when, your environment, your atmosphere of your team is maybe not worth it. Maybe needs to be rethunk a little bit, if that's even a word, rethunk. Seth, you got more thoughts on this?
And it hasn't just been this season. This isn't a new thing where the Seahawks are just making all these penalties. They're consistently at the top of the league in penalties each year. Now, it's a culture thing. It's been that way under Pete Carroll in his whole tenure here.
And I think it plays in your favor sometimes, or it bites you in the butt sometimes. And that's the case for any system. You're going to have your positives and negatives of each system, but I would say a culture like that would be super fun to play with. They always talk about how fun it is, they're always, it seems to be full of energy. If you watch a practice during training camp or something like that, they're always, full of energy. And they even talk about how the practices are harder than the games. And so that kind of culture can be really fun, but as a fan of the game, I can definitely see why it frustrates some people as well.
Even after the game, Cam Chancellor, made a couple of comments that he didn't like the way that his teammates were acting. I mean, part of it you mentioned might be frustration from an interception being taken away from him. But I think a few players on that team are, kind of realize that, hey, we need to calm down and just play football rather than, pick apart the media or, this, that, or the other, focus energy in places it doesn't need to be focused. And I don't know. It's now we're sitting 3 games in the season, looking at a Seahawks team that's 1-2.
Yeah, and with the reality of it, the Hawks, they're going to make the playoffs in the NFC West. I don't think.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm 100%
Why?
positive. The NFC West is not good enough to where the Hawks are going to be dethroned, at least this year.
I'll give you the 49ers aren't good enough, but the Rams are a terrible matchup for the Seahawks. If the Rams beat the Seahawks twice.
And they have shown that in the past years. They have always, snuck up on the Hawks and beat them, I think, at least once.
I don't think it could be sneaking up on them if they consistently do it.
Yeah.
If they consistently cause problems for the Seahawks, I don't know, Seth, if you have a couple thoughts on the Rams. The Rams are built to beat the Seahawks.
And even
the Rams' strength is their D-line. I mean, they've got Aaron Donald, Robert Quinn down there. That's what they do well, and that matches up against the Seattle O-line. Of course, they're in the backfield every single play. Arizona's strength is their defense too, especially their front seven. So I'm not ready to give up on the Seahawks yet. I agree with DJ. I think they're still going to win the NFC West, but I would say it with a little less confidence than you did.
See, where is the point of the season where we get to decide what a team is? In baseball, it takes about 50 games for managers to understand, okay, this is what I got and this is what we can do.
Yeah.
We're almost a quarter of the way through the season. Does it take 4 games to go, okay, this is what they are? Or is it a constant, evolution of teams to where, okay, they were this in week 1 through 4, but all of a sudden through, 4 through 10, they're a different team, and now, when do we know what the Seahawks are?
We gotta wait. Well, I think we're a ways out till we know. But if we see them start slipping and losing a couple more games, I mean, Tennessee, we got to give credit to where credit is due. Tennessee is a good team. They are going to challenge the Buccaneers. Sorry, not the Buccaneers, but they're going to challenge, everybody in the AFC South, Houston especially, and even Jacksonville for that matter, for that division. But like going back to the discipline issue, an NFL coach can only do so much. In college, they have a little more say, but these are grown men that they're coaching, and we talked about it in the break. You build character based on who you sign, and the Hawks, based on who they have signed, who they have drafted, have shown that, discipline, I would say, is not their number one priority. It's more so talent and what you can do for me. But
well, then here, I'll ask you this question. Why is Bill Belichick able to control, might not be the right word, but foster a culture where you never hear anything negative surrounding that organization? Is that going back to who they signed? Because they've had LeGarrette Blount in the past. I don't know if he's still there, but I watched LeGarrette Blount knock out some Boise State player after a game in college. Like, I heard no problems with LeGarrette Blount. Like, why are certain head coaches and organizations able to foster a culture where football is the most important thing to each player?
I guess the way I would answer that,
I mean, they have Rob Gronkowski as well, whose brand is the party boy, big tight end who scores touchdown and spikes of football. He's never in trouble.
And I guess we have always we're talking about players that they have signed now. Maybe now I would have to go back and look at the rosters of their first Super Bowl teams and things like that. But Belichick, through those first couple years, was able to create a culture of you gotta do your job and especially perform on Sundays within those first two Super Bowls. And I think that could have had something to do with the way they were able to sign and establish their way of doing things early on. As the Seahawks, it has been more recent success, especially with Pete Carroll. Like I said, he's a player's coach. So when he first came to Seattle, within those first couple of years, he didn't really establish himself as a disciplinarian. We're going to do things my way, where he gives players more freedom. And then I think that's just what you can expect from these Hawks is Pete Carroll's going to allow them to play free. So I guess, like I said, some of it does fall on the coach, but I think more so it falls on who you're signing.
Seth, you got anything to add to this? Because one of my questions for you, DJ, would be maybe answer in a little bit, but define a player's coach. You are a current player. What is a player's coach? What does that mean? It means that players get to do whatever they want. Seth, you can go ahead and talk right now, but DJ, chew on that one and then come back to me as what a player's coach is, because I'm a half athlete. I can't understand. You might be able to help us out, but what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, I think Belichick runs a little different ship than Carroll does. He strikes me as a no-nonsense guy. You'll never see him smiling, even when he wins the Super Bowl. But so I think it's a little different, where if your name's not Brady, then you're expendable to Belichick. Whereas Pete Carroll isn't so intolerant of players' personality.
I think that's a great point. You brought up the fact of a player's coach. To me, a player's coach is someone who gives the players more freedom than a typical regular coach does, and lets them be who they are. If they want to talk, they can talk. If they don't want to, that's fine too. But you have more freedom within a player's coach to do what you want, say what you want, as opposed to a guy like Belichick, who's a no-nonsense guy. And Seth brought up a good point. Players, except for Brady on that team, are expendable. If you don't, then he has a record of just letting you go. And the Hawks have not been that way. They are willing to re-sign people if they have, put in a good career or something like that. So I think Seth hit it right on the head with Belichick being more of a disciplinarian and Pete Carroll being more of a player's coach and letting his players have more freedom within their system.
Good or bad thing, it's worked out. I'm going to say to both ends of the spectrum for the Seattle Seahawks and that type of culture that their organization experiences.